Hi, this is Phil Spencer, and you're listening to the Inner Circle Podcast. For the fans, by the fans.
Thank you for landing on Planet Xbox. You are now rocking with the Inner Circle, now the official podcast of XboxMad.net. And this is your podcast for fans by fans, so salute to you, the mighty, mighty X units. I'm your moderator, KOR Straight Murder, with Bmuny and Unified, and together we are the Inner Circle. Now it's poll time with Unified.
Yeah, that's right, guys. You heard right. Poll Time's finally back after a long hiatus with all the interviews and great things that have been happening in the TiC Podcast, as you all know. So, you know the drill. It's TiC Poll Time, Planet Xbox family. I want to give a shout out to all you fellow Inner Circle followers and listeners. We always value your feedback and always thank you for taking the time to give it to us. We had 2 poll questions this time around, so it's time to go over the poll results. Do you think Xbox should stop selling hardware in Japan? An overwhelming 71% of you said no. Most reasons as to why were because they're already selling in Japan and they can't afford to lose more loyal fans and gain more bad PR. Makes sense. So let's move on to the topic that we always ask is what shall the Inner Circle talk about next? The winning poll topic was, are remasters for next-gen consoles just quick cash-ins? And we'll discuss this in the upcoming podcast. So over to you, Wood.
So, unfortunately, today, we won't have Unified with us. I know you guys just heard him on poll time, but something came up, and he won't be able to do the show. So, in replace of him, I want to introduce you guys to people that you never really hear on the actual show, but you do hear them on the TiC Podcast channel. In charge of our review team, Scotty, and our newest member, newest reviewer, and newest Twitch streamer, Skittles. So before I get into this topic, I want to say, thank you, Skittles, for joining the team. We look forward to working with you. And Scotty, congratulations on taking over the review team. And we look forward to the things that you guys are going to bring to the table starting in 2015. So, our first topic is our fan topic, as you know. And the fan topic for tonight is, are remastered games worth paying full price for? Now, recently, we just had the remaster of the Halo Master Chief Collection, which is a fine remaster in itself. I mean, it's one of the few titles where I feel like the game itself is actually worth more than what they set the price at because of the content you got. Unfortunately, right now, because of the server issues with matchmaking and the long wait times, it's kind of put a negative spin on something that should have been a major title, a major release that came out this year. So what I want to know from you guys, do you think that these remastered games are worth paying full price for? You look at a game like The Last of Us that released in 2013, got redone in 2014. Was it significant enough? Was Halo significant enough? Was Sleeping Dogs a significant enough change where it was worth paying full price? Along with Grand Theft Auto, that's another title that actually really changed the whole entire perspective of the game going first person. Let's start with you, Jim.
Yeah, I think there definitely is a marketplace for remastered games, but I think there has to be some kind of timeline, like I would say 3 or 4 years between them. And I would also like to see something like if you'd bought the original game, some kind of code or something, so you wouldn't have to pay full price for that game because you're going to be supporting it again. And there is another thing about that. The remastered games is it's good because you can like so the game The Walking Dead that I've just reviewed. I think it's fantastic that I can go back in, and I missed it on the 360, but then I get another chance to play it on Xbox One.
Right.
I think that's a great... It does work really well, I think.
Okay. Skittles, what is your thoughts?
I think for games like the re-release of Grand Theft Auto 5 and the re-release of Sleeping Dogs, it's a good thing because those people that missed it actually get a chance to relive that. And in the case of Sleeping Dogs, it didn't sell well the first time around, so I think that it kind of breathes new life into the genre and gives people a new experience and a new chance to play these games. But on games like The Last of Us Remastered, I think it was too close to last year's title, and it was too similar. You know, it didn't really add a whole lot to the table. It was running a little bit prettier, but other than that, it just really didn't feel like it warranted a full re-release of that game.
Right.
So I think it's one of those things of it's kind of a gray area. Some things are worth remarketing for that type of thing, and other things it just feels like a kind of a cheap cash in to get some more money out of.
Do you think it's worth paying full price for these titles? I mean, because they're both $60 titles.
Yeah. In the case of Sleeping Dogs, you actually got all of the DLC that came with the game separately. So I mean, you're getting $30 or $40 worth of extra content, and having to pay $60 again for the people who missed it. I think that's a fair deal. But just doing a complete re-release and not changing anything, like in terms of Grand Theft Auto 5, they actually added that first-person mode. I don't know if it warrants maybe a $60 release. Maybe $49 I think would be fair, but it's a really marginally gray area as far as what's acceptable to charge $50 for it. I feel like you have to bring something definitively different to the table.
Right. Scotty, do you feel the same, or do you feel like it should be cheaper? What are your thoughts?
I definitely think it should be. I think it should be cheaper if you bought the original game.
Right.
I think you should get some kind of code or something you can put in, because you'll have the achievements. They'll know you had it. So I would just like to see it done that way, I think.
Maybe something similar to like you bought Call of Duty on 360 and then you upgrade to the Xbox One version and they give you like those $10 off coupons or something like that. I think that, these games, if you have a package that's, different enough to the point that when you pick up the game, it's a brand new experience. Like Skittles said, you have all this DLC, all this content that wasn't in the original game, or more, then yes, I think it's worth the $60. However, if I'm going to get a game and all I'm getting is a resolution bump and a frames per second bump, and even if the DLC isn't marginally good, or at least marginally in depth, like at least 4 or 5 pieces of DLC, not like 1 or 2, I don't see why I have to pay $59.99 for a game that I already purchased. So, as you guys know, Microsoft has had an excellent holiday season so far. 3 of their launches have been highly rated. Their first Kinect game that was actually critically acclaimed with a great soundtrack and a cult classic director in Swery65. D4 is probably one of the first games where you hear the words "better with Kinect" and it actually means something. Like, it's a really good game. Then you turn around, you have Forza Horizon 2, which to me, in my opinion, should have been nominated for Game of the Year, but it wasn't. And it was an excellent game in itself. Then you turn around and you drop Sunset Overdrive, which is a brand new IP, and is another highly rated IP. Hopefully people play the game and they recognize how awesome that game is. Another really highly rated game that was launched. And of course, the Feast of Resistance Halo Master Chief Collection, which so far to me has been amazing. I played a campaign with a friend of mine, so we go really in depth with the campaign, and I just constantly switch back and forth between the original and the anniversary and just look at how much detail and how much they change. I think it's an awesome game. It's one of the few games where I think the balance of campaign and multiplayer are perfect. But the downside is that if your multiplayer for a game like that is bad, it kind of really hurts the game itself, which I think is what's happening with the Master Chief Collection. So, with that said, What do you guys think? Did you think that Microsoft had a great holiday season with the games they released, or do you think it could have been better? Maybe if they didn't push something to 2015 like Quantum Break, or recently just announced Ori and the Blind Forest. What are your thoughts, Skittles?
I think that they have yet to have their holiday season because they've just done this price cut on the version of the system with the Kinect and the version of the system without the Kinect, both of which include bundles of games. So you've got Assassin's Creed 4 and you've got Assassin's Creed Unity. But I think that over the next several weeks, once we kind of get closer to the end of the year and to the end of this quarter, the numbers are really going to start to add up, because I feel like they've got a strong catalog of games already. They've got a strong catalog of games coming out over the next several months and over the next several years. So I think that they're just now getting started. They're just now getting that foot off the starting line. Right. And I think from here, it's only going to increase. Right.
Scotty?
Yeah, I think they've got a great holiday season. The diversity in the games that you've just mentioned there's not two the same. It's just, I think it's a fantastic catalogue of games they've got, and they're building there, and they continue to build. I think it's absolutely tremendous what they've achieved in the year so far. When you consider where they were a year ago to where they are now, I think it's absolutely remarkable, actually.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, it's definitely been a major transition. And be honest with you, I liked their launch lineup. I thought it, to me, when I look at all the launch lineups that Microsoft had, minus the original Halo Combat Evolved, when you look at the lineups they had, I think that the Xbox One might have had the best lineup of a console launch in a long time. 360 had Cameo. I think it had like some sports titles. I think it had Perfect Dark or something like that. But when you look at Dead Rising 3, which I thought was a really great game, and I don't even play Dead Rising, and I played it and I was hooked. It was very addicting. Rise, even though it might have been repetitive, the story was actually really good, had a nice little twist to it. The graphics were amazing, especially for a launch title. So imagine what things might look like, 4 or 5 years from now. Then you have Forza 5, which was a solid, sim racer. Obviously one of Microsoft's flagship titles, and it was gorgeous. And really, people always want to bash about resolution and frames per second. It's really the only true game that was actually 1080p, 60 frames per second, steady, with no frame drops. So, I think they had a great holiday. And you turn around this year, and you drop a new IP in Sunset, a working game, a working Kinect game in D4, your flagship title in a remastered collection, and then you drop the I guess you could say the off-brand version of your flagship racer, and it's actually 10 times better than the first one. It's crazy how they did that. And then along the way, you have Phil Spencer literally just Frankensteining his system, just literally rebuilding it from what we thought it was into what it is now, and it's a completely different system from when it launched in 2013. So I think they had a really great holiday season. As you guys know, Microsoft announced that they actually I can't say Microsoft announced, but from what I've heard, they have went over the 1 million units sold in the UK, and according to VG charts, they have also now moved into second place worldwide and passed the Wii U behind. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say, okay, Microsoft is making a comeback, because obviously Sony still has a large gap. But the bottom line is that people are buying these consoles, and their marketing strategy, their bundles, and their reduced consoles, their reduced console prices has really, really worked. What do you guys think by the end of the year, if they can sustain this? Because the last time I seen, they actually sold 971,000 consoles in the last 2 weeks worldwide. They're almost at 1 million consoles sold in 2 weeks. That is insane. What do you guys think they'll be by the end of the year? Let's start with you, Scotty.
Yep, I think it's onwards and upwards so far. I mean, like you said, the UK we've just hit over 1 million units. I mean, that's all obviously down to me and my megaphone over here in the UK. I just shout from the rooftops about it.
Right.
But no, seriously, I mean, the reason you look at, we've touched on, they've had a price drop, they've great diversity of games. I think you've got to give great credit to Phil and the whole team at Xbox to what they're doing. There's been great advertising over here, and it all seems to be paying off, you know. And I mean, like I said, I think it's quite remarkable. As in, like last year, I mean, this console was dead on its feet when it first launched, and now a year later, you've got an EA CFO saying that Xbox is catching up very quickly. I just think that's incredible. And I mean, numbers-wise, by the end of the year, I mean, who knows? I think it's going to be really, really tight anyway. Really close now.
What are your thoughts, Skittles?
I've got to agree with Scotty. You know, it's going to be an uphill go from here. But I've said it before, and I'll say it again. This is due in part to the fact that Phil Spencer is trying to become a god to the gamer, and I don't mean that in a negative way. He is doing everything in his power to make sure that we're happy and to make sure that their consumer base is happy and everybody gets what they want. And I think that is I think that's a great thing as far as us as consumers, and that's a great thing for the community because it gives everybody a chance to get everything that they want. I mean, all the titles you listed, there's several different genres for anybody to pick from. You know, from Sunset Overdrive, it being a very out there niche title, to Halo, which everybody knows and loves on the Xbox, and you know you've got stuff like Call of Duty, which gets exclusives first on the Xbox One. Right. I think that they're going to have a very, very successful. As far as numbers, I couldn't tell you because. You know, we'll know once we kind of get closer to Thanksgiving and after Thanksgiving and then the holiday season from there. But I think that they could, if they play their cards right, if they do their marketing right, and they continue with these sales and these bundles and everything that they're doing, I think they could very well double what they've done so far.
Yeah, I think so too. I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, they had momentum. They obviously selling extremely well in the UK. They've been doing really well in the United States over the last 2 weeks. Hopefully, we find out next week what they pulled in for the US. And I believe they're going to go over 1 million sales in a month. And that's really major. Now, I don't know if they could sustain that through December. But if they do, let's just say, for example, right now they're supposed to be at 7.7 million. The Wii U was at 7.2 million, and that's with 971,000 consoles. So let's say they hit 1 million by that point. That would pretty much put them close to 8. And by the end of the year, if they sustain those numbers, they would be around 8.5 to 9 million. And that's just give or take. A few 100,000 if it fluctuates from 200,000 a week to 150 or whatever. If they could sustain that, probably by mid-January, they would have 10 million consoles. And I don't know if that's closing the gap on Sony. And be honest with you, you don't need to sell consoles to be successful. We last generation sold over 100,000 consoles, but it wasn't the best console. It didn't have the best games. And in my opinion, it had some great games, but it had a lot of shovelware too. It just didn't help the system at all, especially when you compare it to what the PS3 and the Xbox 360 offered. It just was a casual machine. Casuals bought it like they went out and bought candy. But I think that this generation, whatever they tried to do last generation is hurting them this generation as far as the Wii U is concerned. Just based off of exclusives and not getting that third-party support. That's what's sustaining Microsoft. That's what's pushing them past the Wii U. They have exclusive as well, but that third-party support is what's pushing them past the Wii U. PlayStation is just a brand, man. It's just a name. It's out there worldwide. People trust it. People love it. So it's going to sell regardless. But I think Microsoft has an opportunity by the end of the year, if they keep pursuing it, to be a 10 million double-digit sold console in homes instead of retail.
And if nothing else, they're definitely doing something right in their marketing department, because Sony has now actually started using their tagline of "It's the best place to play," which Microsoft started several months ago.
Right.
So now Sony's kind of taken that tagline and using it for themselves. So if nothing else, the guys at their marketing department have an edge and have an idea because other people are using it.
Right. Yeah, I mean, listen, I think Xbox has done great with their marketing strategies. They've really come on the last couple of weeks, going into the fall season, and I think it's made people aware. I really do. I think they've done a great job. I can't wait to talk to Aaron Greenberg about that next year when we get him on the show. It's going to be great to reminisce about about 2014 and how they finally got back in the game. It's gonna be great.
There was an interesting point as well when the Destiny game figures, they released them, and there was still 13% of them were on Xbox 360.
Right.
So there's still a lot of people on the 360 yet that's still to change over to a PlayStation 4 or an Xbox One. So I mean, it'd be important for the community to try and grab them as well on their way over.
Right. No, there's a ton of people that haven't come over yet. They have to. I'll be honest with you. All Microsoft needs, and this is the God honest truth, to make the conversion. Because I know a lot of people who are waiting for DLNA support, HBO Go, things like that to come over, those apps. All Microsoft has to do is figure out a way to get backwards compatibility for the people that actually own stuff on 360 to transfer over through the cloud. If they can get that done, then they will be on the right path. They will be okay. People will have no choice. You'd be like, why do I still have this last-gen system when I can still play all my digital games on the Xbox One through the cloud? If they could do that, they're set. I'll be honest with you, that would actually beat PlayStation Now, PS Now. Because I just think that you don't have to rent the games that you already had. You would still have them. You would still own those licenses. If they could figure that out, man, that's a gold mine. I think with that, they could probably overtake Sony, in my opinion. So, a couple weeks ago, Phil had tweeted that he had visited Rare, and he had seen what they were showing off. And it reminded him of Rare of old. Like, it was a real rare game. And he gave us a hint at someone who was actually working on the game, and I believe his name was David Mays, who had originally worked on Conquer, Banjo, and some of the original projects from Rare that you guys love and know. And he has his hands in the new Rare title. My question is, what do you guys think this game is? Do you think it's a new IP? Is it a platformer? Could it be the revival of Banjo or Conquer? I mean, we've seen some hints going around where Aaron Greenberg was at Rare and he had a picture of Banjo. You have Conquer in the Project Spark. So there's a lot of tidbits going back and forth about what this could possibly be. Skittles?
My money is going to be on it's a Conquer reboot, just because when they did Conquer Live and Reloaded on the original Xbox, and they did that remake of the Nintendo 64 game, it was just so, like, that was, to me, that was the first real HD remake that I ever saw. That was the first one that got me into the idea that they could remake games, and it was just night and day. And Conquer still has a very, very large fan base, and I mean, they, like you said, they hinted at they were going to add him into the Project Spark game, and they were like, well, if they won't make one, we'll make one ourselves. So I think that could be something, and the online multiplayer for it, if you take a look at Sunset Overdrive, how crazy it is, I think that Conquer could live very successfully on this new console and could bring in not even just the old fan base, but bring in an entire new fan base to that particular game.
Right.
So my money's gonna go with Conquer.
Okay, Scotty.
Well, I'm kind of hoping it's a new Banjo-Kazooie. I mean, just imagine how the games of old on like the N64, those 3D adventures, but on a modern console with maybe a bit of Kinect control as well. I think that would just be incredible. But just the way I think Phil's the way he sort of put his tweet out, it was uniquely rare of old. I just think it's going to be a new IP. That's the way I see it. I think they've had a few pokers in the fire, and one of them's maybe seems to be working better than the rest of them, just the way that he said. I mean, Mr. Miles, was it Mays that he said? He's worked on Banjo-Kazooie, Grabbed by the Ghoulies, Viva Pinata. I mean, you could take really any one of them, but I honestly think it's going to be a new IP from Rare.
You know, I'm hoping that it's a new IP from Rare, but I also hope that they are working on a Rare IP of old. I mean, we've already seen that they had the Battletoads trademark renewed. And you know, usually when you do trademark renewals, somebody comes out and say, no, we're not working on the game or nothing like that. It's just a renewal process. But I think they may be actually working on Battletoads. I don't think Rare is working on Battletoads. I think Rare is working on a new IP. Honestly, I just remember a couple weeks ago, almost a month ago, when we had Phil on the show. And one of the things he said was he gave them free will to do whatever they wanted, but he wanted them to do something that was Rare-like. He wanted a Rare title. So I'm pretty sure that it's a big budget title. I know that they have the backing of Microsoft. Bringing in David, obviously, he wants this game to be a hit. Clearly. So I'm pretty sure it's probably going to be a new IP. I'm pretty sure it's going to be a platformer. And I'm looking forward to it. But I think we'll be surprised next year with Battletoads. I think Battletoads will be a downloadable game, kind of like Killer Instinct. Side-scrolling beat 'em up, just 1080p, 30 frames per second. And it's probably going to be like 3D, not like a 2D, like real 3D. Really awesome player models and stuff like that. Side-scrolling beat 'em up. I think that would be pretty dope. 2 games from Rare in the same year. I think that would be pretty sick. So, before we head out, I just want to touch on, Microsoft's success, obviously, and Phil talking about games releasing in 2015 and how it's going to be really, really crazy. You see a lot of talk from both sides. Nintendo, these guys have a lot of awesome exclusives coming out next year. PlayStation has some awesome games coming out early in the year and later in the year. Hopefully Uncharted 4 releases if it doesn't get pushed back. But people seem to forget that Microsoft has some really slick games under the table. They have Evolve DLC first. We get the beta also in January again. We also get to play the exclusive content first from The Division. We have Fable Legends. We have the Tomb Raider, Rise of the Tomb Raider coming out next year. Halo 5 coming out next year. Quantum Break coming out next year. It's a lot of games coming out next year. That's not including some of the things we've seen from E3 as far as the indie program is concerned. You push Ori into next year. That's another awesome platformer that we can look forward to. I think Microsoft has a sweet lineup next year, and there's a lot of games that's not even announced yet. There's a lot of games not announced yet. I think that they're going to have a really great year. And just to finish off, what do you guys think? What do you think they need besides what they already announced next year to bolster their lineup, or do you think the lineup is good as it is? Let's start with you, Scotty.
Yeah, well, Phil said, what did he say? It's that compact at the end of 2015 that he's thinking about pushing some stuff into even the year after. So, right. I mean, we don't know. We don't know how much that's true. That could just be him speaking and trying to get some fans on board, some more sales. But I mean, it's a hard one to call. I don't know if they need anything else. Maybe they pushed Ori and the Blind Forest to 2015 because I think the start of the year is a little bit, it's a little bit empty because, I mean, PlayStation 4, they've got a couple of big ones coming up. They've got The Order coming out. They need something to try and combat that. So I think the end of the year will be okay. It's just I'm a bit worried at the start of the year that they're going to be a little bit luck on the games, and that's where the PlayStation might just creep back up again.
I agree. What are your thoughts, Skittles?
I think right now they've got a great lineup. They've got a lot of exclusives that they're either getting first or they're getting exclusively through the Xbox One. But the thing is the holiday season is what they really need to be concerned with, because developers tend to want to push those games out at the end of the year. We always have that drought during the summer where we don't get a whole lot of games. But I think with, we've got Tomb Raider, like you said, Ori and the Blind Forest, and then we've got these ID at Xbox games, which I'm really excited for. I'm excited for a lot of those. I'm excited for Smite coming to the Xbox One.
Yes,
so
yes.
I think they've got plenty of games that are definitely going to keep them afloat and during the drought season. And then once we get to the end of the year, we start getting back into the holidays again in 2015. I think that's when they're going to bring out the heavy hitters, and they're going to be able to compete very well during the holiday season next year.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think they push Ori to to January, because I think they just felt like, they have enough games from November to sustain people for December. But when you go into the new year, I think they're just going to be not like a major title, and Ori was on that list to be like one of those significant titles. So I think you launch Ori in January and you start the year out with that. You could take a break around February and maybe release something around March or April. I think they could ride with that through the whole year. I mean, you do have Evolve. You still have multi-plats coming out where we get DLC first, exclusive DLC. So it's kind of some type of benefit to that. But I think that if they can come out with some idea Xbox games to sustain us, as well as maybe one or two IPs from the Microsoft Studios side of the games, or first party or second party titles, I think they'll probably have another significant year where I think that it would be hard to beat that. I thought Microsoft was pretty hard to beat in the fall, and I have to throw Titanfall in there this year, that I felt like they had a great year. So I think if they could do that early on again, I think they'll have another great year, and the competition is going to have to bring it. So that's it for our show this week, guys. Stay tuned as we release new episodes every other Friday or Saturday with the latest fan topics, shout-outs, Xbox fan guests, rumors, and opinions. And of course, check me out weekly for Straight Murder Pod Shots, where I do a short podcast on what the buzz is in the game industry, along with TiC Reviews, hosted by Scotty and our new Xbox team, which you will get to know very soon. Thank you for listening and for your support. Please comment and subscribe. For the fans, by the fans, we're off this planet. Peace.
For the fans, by the fans.